Discover the one transformative action to banish toxic people forever. Your inner peace awaits. Sarah stood at the front of her classroom, the vibrant energy of her students washing over her like the warm sun streaming through the windows. Yet even amidst their eager voices, her heart felt heavy. Outside, the world seemed alive with possibility, but inside, she battled a relentless storm, a toxic relationship with her mother that had turned her childhood support into a suffocating critique. "You should be better, Sarah," her mother's voice echoed in her mind like a broken record, drumming incessantly, drowning out the joy of teaching. It was the familiar cycle of disappointment and dread that haunted her every evening. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the day, Sarah sighed, the burden of teaching not the problem but rather a symptom of deeper turmoil. She dismissed her students with a warm smile, masking the internal conflict clawing at her. It was almost routine now, this feeling of being torn between two worlds, the inspiring teacher dedicated to making a change, and the daughter forever seeking approval from a critical mother. With heavy shoulders, she trudged home through the quaint Midwestern town, each step bringing the impending family dinner closer. The cluttered kitchen awaited her, a battleground of old memories and unspoken resentment. As she chopped vegetables, the knife felt heavier than usual, each slice echoing her mother's disapproval. "You never were the creative one," she could hear her say, a sneer underlying the innocent comments. Cooking became a meditative exercise, tinged with tension. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected memory. In the little diner down the street, she once met Mr. Thompson, the retired principal whose twinkle-in-the-eye look had seen the potential in her. "Follow your passion, Sarah," he encouraged, and for a moment, flags of hope unfurled in her heart. The mentor she needed. But the torrent of familial expectations quickly doused that flicker. She longed to paint again, to reconnect with the girl who expressed herself through colors. Not criticism but doubt held her captive. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The thought of an art exhibition began to materialize as a beacon of possibility. But as she painted, a knot of unease twisted tighter in her stomach. Her mother would never understand. What if she criticized her paintings as harshly as she critiqued her life? The vibrant strokes on the canvas contrasted with the muted tones of her familial obligations, igniting a conflict that left her breathless. Then came the news: the exhibition date had been set. Joy intermingled with despair. Sarah pictured her mother's calculating gaze, the way her lips would purse in disapproval. The weight of their relationship hung heavily between them, a shield against the authenticity of Sarah's emerging self. She wrestled with impending truths, anxiety prickling her skin like icy fingers. Would she allow her mother's criticism to suffocate her blossoming identity or face the haunting legacy of familial loyalty? As the exhibition day drew closer, Sarah felt herself at a precipice, heart racing with uncertainty. The tension crackled in the air, and with each brushstroke, she not only painted her journey but also the duality of her spirit, one hand nurturing creativity while the other clung to family ties. Would she unveil her work as a powerful declaration of personal freedom or yield once again to the suffocating bonds of her past? The gallery awaited as she stood, breathless, facing the unknown. The day of the exhibition arrived, and Sarah felt the weight of impending judgment weighing her down like an anchor. The gallery stood before her, a blank canvas of an entirely different kind, crisp white walls awaiting the splash of her artwork, which echoed her innermost struggles. Each painting she had completed felt like a part of her struggling for air, each breath fueled by a mixture of fear and anticipation. She knew her work had potential. Yet, the specter of her mother overshadowed everything, a relentless echo reminding her of her failures. In the early hours, she prepared herself, the morning sun streaming through her window. Brush in hand, she took a moment, perhaps a breath too long, to glance at the paintings lining her room, vivid landscapes where the colors danced in unison and abstract forms that twisted through her dreams. For a heartbeat, they felt like the gateway to another life, one where doubt didn't sit so heavy on her shoulders. "Today is yours, Sarah," she whispered, her mantra in the face of anxiety. But seeping into that mantra was her mother's doubt. "What if you embarrass yourself?" replayed in her head. "What if this is all a waste of time?" The doubts pounded relentlessly, like a drummer beating a war cry. She could almost see her mother in the corner of the gallery, arms crossed, an unyielding sentinel ready to critique her efforts, her heart, her very existence. Nevertheless, Sarah donned her favorite outfit, each layer a shield against the storm inside her. The nerves twisted within, yet beneath them burned a flicker of resolve that would not be extinguished. In sheer determination, she rehearsed in front of the mirror, "These are my creations, reflections of my journey. They are valid." Yet a question lingered, unwelcome and persistent: would they truly reflect her, or simply echo the doubts surrounding her? As she stepped into the gallery, the environment pulsed with hushed excitement. The twinkling voices of art appreciators mingled with the scent of fresh paint and polished wood. Her heart thudded, each beat a countdown to her moment of unveiling. Curiously, it also began to feel like a test, not of her art but of herself. If she could stand here and present her work, a voice of authenticity amidst the chaos of familial expectations, perhaps she could finally understand her worth. As the guests began to filter in, a familiar face caught her eye: Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Thompson's wife, a woman who had been a supporter during Sarah's formative years. With every step toward her, Sarah felt a surge of reassurance as Mrs. Thompson's warm smile enveloped her like a comforting cocoon. "You have an incredible gift, Sarah," she exclaimed, lifting Sarah's spirits momentarily. Yet, there remained a gnawing anxiety. Her mother had not yet arrived, the uncertainty of her presence loomed larger by the minute. As the crowd began to gather, Sarah found herself before her first painting. The soft whispers of appreciation reverberated around her, yet the latent feeling of frailty still danced on the edges of her confidence. What if her mother entered now? What would she say? The room began to blur. She forced herself to breathe, deliberately sinking into the moment. Then, almost as if summoned by her anxious thoughts, her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text illuminated the screen: "I'm here." The words struck like lightning, illuminating her muscles with tension. All her preparations began to sink under a shroud of unease. What if today wasn't about her art after all, but a final reckoning with the voice that had haunted her for decades? Would she allow the shadow of that voice to define her narrative one more time? Taking a deep breath, Sarah prepared to greet whoever entered next, her heart racing not from excitement, but a trembling alarm of confrontation. The door swung open, and with it, the suspense of her future trembled on the brink. The gallery now buzzed with voices, but to Sarah, it felt as if all sound faded to a dull hum. Every jest, every comment, simply blurring together as her focus narrowed to the door. When it swung open, revealing her mother, the expression on her face was unreadable, neither approving nor dismissive, just a blank canvas of expectations. "Why don't you show me what you've done?" Her mother's voice sliced through the chatter, a command wrapped in a thin veneer of indifference. In that moment, all of Sarah's rehearsed resolutions surged forward, struggling beneath her perceptions of inadequacy. She forced a smile and stepped closer to the first painting, letting herself fall into the colors, hoping they could drown out the sharp edge of her mother's presence. "This one is about the chaos inside me," she began, but the moment the words slipped out, she felt her chest tighten. Wasn't that a raw admission? In the eyes of an observer who had spent a lifetime judging her output, would it reveal strength or weakness? As her mother leaned closer, scrutinizing with an intensity that made her skin crawl, Sarah's heart raced. The haunting words of her childhood echoed: "You need to work harder. You need to be better." Each recollection stepped forward like phantoms marching through her mind, their expressions rigid, their voices harsh. "What do you think?" Sarah asked, desperate to break the tension before it consumed her. The answer was damning, unmasking the doubts that had lurked in the shadowed corners of her psyche. "It looks unfinished," came her mother's assessment, dismissive and cold. A quiet prayer for encouragement drowned in a deluge of disappointment that followed. If the artistic essence of her being had taken form in these canvases, who was her mother to declare them incomplete? It felt unfair. Yet, within that injustice, a seed of defiance began to take root. Could she allow herself to feel justified in her artistry, despite the verdict that loomed over her? Another painting caught her mother's attention. This one was vibrant with swirling colors exploding like fireworks against a night sky. Why is this so different from the others? She probed, a hint of challenge lacing her tone. It's how I see joy, Sarah stated firmly, finally allowing herself to voice the truth behind her work. Joy amidst the chaos of life. The realization struck her, if she could create joy in colors while wrestling with her inner turmoil, perhaps that was the declaration she needed. As conversations shifted around her, Sarah felt a fresh wave of clarity washing over her. Her art was an expression, a mirror to her struggles, a celebration of her victories. It was time to reclaim her narrative, one brushstroke at a time. She looked straight into her mother's eyes, unblinking. Art doesn't need approval from anyone. It simply needs to exist. Those words, once locked away, liberated a profound strength within her. But the air thickened once more as her mother's gaze sharpened, challenging the shift of power dynamic. Sarah's heart hammered. Was this moment a rallying cry for her to step into her authenticity, or a potential confrontation that could extinguish her newfound courage? As laughter bubbled around her from other patrons, Sarah took one step closer to her mother, driven not by fear but by a newfound determination. Yet even as she prepared for a confrontation that could redefine everything between them, she felt the tremors of uncertainty pulse through her with the steady rhythm of her racing heartbeat. The moment of truth had arrived. What direction would her confrontation take, and would she be able to stand her ground? In this dance between rejection and acceptance, what transformation awaited her? As Sarah took a breath, the air thick with tension and unwritten narratives, she noticed the shift around her. The laughter dimmed into the background, replaced by a charged silence that felt almost tangible. Her mother's scrutinizing gaze held her motionless, tethering her to that spot, caught between past regrets and newfound assertiveness. Why do you think this is art? Her mother challenged, her tone a sharp blade. Art is meant to provoke thought, to be polished, refined. The words landed heavy on Sarah's chest, uncomfortable reminders of the high standards she had lived under for so long. She felt her heart stir with frustration, anger mingling with a potent surge of bravery. Each pulse resonated like a metronome, keeping time with her determination to fight back. Art is about truth, Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. It's expressing what's real to the artist. For me, it's about capturing emotions. I can't always be polished. Just as she spoke, clarity sparked within her, a recognition that her resistance to her mother's assessments was not just about art. It was a deep-rooted fight for her own identity. Her mother blinked, seemingly taken aback. The tension shifted again, moments of silence stretching between them like a tightly pulled string. Did her mother truly grasp the depth of her struggle, or was she still locked within her ancient lens of criticism? The answer lingered just out of reach. Walking past another painting, the vibrant one that depicted joy, she scrutinized it, searching for the right words that would resonate with both her and her mother. This painting isn't just paint on canvas, it's a celebration of everything I've felt. The chaos, yes, but also the happiness that can emerge from it. Isn't that worth something? Her mother remained silent, her expression a mix of contemplation and doubt. In that pause, Sarah realized she held the power not to change her mother's perception, but to define her own success and measure her worth against her own standards. The pieces of her identity began to align in a way they hadn't before. The fear of judgment was not extinguished, yet it felt less suffocating. Why can't you see that my art reflects my journey? She pressed further, her heart pounding with defiance. It tells a story of survival. What I've created is as valid as any piece in this room, regardless of your opinion. At that moment, Sarah understood it was not only her art she was defending. She was confronting a lifetime of feeling diminished by another's expectations. It was time to articulate her boundaries, to challenge how she allowed others to shape her self-worth. Maybe I don't need your approval, she said, and for once, the words felt empowering. Maybe my joy doesn't need to fit into your mold of perfection. The world around them faded into a blur as she forged this personal advancement. It was just the two of them now, the artist and the critic. Sarah braced herself for the response that would inevitably follow. The silence that had enveloped them shifted into something almost electric, a space where both conflict and clarity intersected. I've spent so long trying to prove myself to you, she continued, her voice steady. But I want to create for me, not for anyone else. I'm beginning to understand the power of owning my narrative. As those words settled, Sarah felt a shift within. There was a new sense of purpose emerging, one that could ripple outward and touch every aspect of her life. What other truths lay hidden within her, waiting to be uncovered? And would this confrontation be the catalyst that propelled her toward deeper self-discovery? Her mother's eyes narrowed, a silent battle of wills set against the vibrant paintings that surrounded them. Whatever was about to emerge from this moment could either fracture their connection further or forge a new understanding. Yet as Sarah braced for the storm that might follow, the very architecture of her resolve solidified. She was ready to meet this confrontation head-on, revealing not just the artist, but the woman she'd fought to become. What awaited on the other side of this moment? And would her courage endure through the next revelations? As silence enveloped them, Sarah felt her mother's simmering frustration radiating through the air. The anticipated retort hung in the balance, and Sarah seized the opportunity to press further. It's not just a rejection of your standards, she explained, her voice unwavering. It's an affirmation of mine. I want to embrace the messy, unrefined parts of myself. Those are the parts that breathe life into my work. Her mother's brow furrowed deeper, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah observed a flicker of recognition. Perhaps there was a glimmer of understanding hidden beneath layers of criticism. The realization solidified her conviction. This was as much about her own growth as their relationship dynamics. To emerge as the woman she was meant to be, she would need to confront not only her mother but the very fears she had harbored: fear of disapproval, of failure, of identity itself. Why does it have to fit neatly into a box? She continued, urgency tightening her throat with each word. Why can't it be chaotic? Life is chaotic, and that's the truth I want to reflect. Isn't that what makes it real? Her mother took a breath, the scent of impending change hanging heavily in the air. In that moment, the dual forces of confrontation and vulnerability bore down upon them. Sarah felt both alive and terrified. There was no turning back now. Art has always been a representation of what's valued, her mother countered, her voice losing some of its sharpness, becoming almost contemplative. But it's not only about rawness. Isn't craftsmanship just as vital? The question tumbled through Sarah's mind. Craftsmanship, a term that had been a cornerstone of her mother's belief system. Yes, it mattered, but the definition wasn't static. Art could develop from imperfections too. This was a battle of definitions and a struggle for recognition of diverse experiences. Perhaps, in articulating her thoughts, Sarah could guide her mother to expand her viewpoint. Craftsmanship can evolve, too, she said softly. It's not only about technical precision but the emotion that drives the creation. Isn't that valid in its own right? Once more, silence fell between them, punctuated only by the distant sounds echoing from the gallery, insignificant remnants of laughter and chatter reminding them of the world outside their bubble. Suddenly, it dawned on her that this moment was an inflection point, both for herself and her relationship with her mother. With a firm resolve, she realized it was time to pivot not only the conversation but her own artistic path. I want my art to voice the complexities of women, the struggles, the triumphs, all of it, she stated, her tone shifting to encompass both excitement and conviction. And it's not just about me. It's about the stories that deserve to be told, even those that are uncomfortable. Her mother's eyes reflected a battle of emotions, confusion mingled with a hint of pride, shadowed by old habits. Sarah was stepping into a space that demanded respect, but would it be reciprocated? I know change is hard, but can we not try to find a middle ground? Sarah pressed, her heart racing. Let us redefine what art means for both of us. As her mother grappled with this new exchange, Sarah could feel the roots of her own identity digging deeper. It was as if she had uncovered a long-buried treasure, empowering her as an artist and a person. Her narrative was shifting, no longer defined solely by her mother's views but transformed into a tapestry woven from her experiences and convictions. With this new direction taking shape, the world around her became vibrant and full of possibilities. What other transformations might emerge from this confrontation? Could her mother truly embrace this expansion of thought, or would their relationship fracture under the strain? Before Sarah could further probe for understanding, her mother raised a hand, signaling a pause. "Let us continue this later," she said, the weight of her words carrying an unexpected complexity suggesting that their dialogue was far from over. As they stood on the precipice of a newfound understanding, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What would the next steps be? Was she ready to navigate this newfound terrain of growth, both personally and professionally? The questions loomed large, pregnant with potential. Her journey was only beginning. The ensuing days felt heavier for Sarah, as if the air was charged with unspoken words and unresolved conflict. Every brushstroke on her canvas echoed her internal struggle, a chaotic blend of exhilaration and apprehension. The confrontation with her mother had ignited a spark within her, but it also illuminated how deeply ingrained her mother's opinions were in her psyche. As she prepared for an upcoming exhibition showcasing her latest work, Sarah couldn't shake the anxiety that clung to her. Each piece was a tapestry of vulnerability and resilience, a reflection of her tumultuous relationship with not just her mother, but the artistic community as a whole. Would anyone understand her vision? Would they dismiss it as mere chaos, as her mother had hinted? Amidst her turmoil, she sought out her mentor, a seasoned artist named Leo who had always encouraged her to dig deeper into her roots. His perspective often forced her to confront uncomfortable truths, but it also guided her toward her self-identity. Arranging a meeting at his studio, she hoped for clarity and direction. When she stepped into the sunlight-drenched room, the familiar scent of turpentine filled her lungs, grounding her momentarily. Leo was leaning against an easel, his hands splattered with paint, eyes twinkling with wisdom and mischief interwoven. "Sarah!" He greeted her with enthusiasm, oblivious to the weight on her shoulders. "Let us see what you've been working on." As she unveiled her pieces one by one, she spoke of her journey, her struggles against preconceived notions of what art should be. Leo listened intently, occasionally nodding, his gaze penetrating yet encouraging. The tension in her chest began to ease, but a lingering wound ached for acknowledgement. "You're evolving," Leo finally said, stepping back to admire the final piece, a raw portrayal of a woman standing firm against a turbulent backdrop. "But are you willing to challenge not just others, but yourself? You need to be unapologetically yourself." His words struck a chord within Sarah, and layers of doubt unfurled in the presence of her mentor's forthrightness. The realization hit her, sharp and clear: each piece, while a reflection of her growth and struggles, must also resonate with authenticity. She was armed with the stories left untold, the emotional chaoses begging for articulation. "Why do I still care so much about validating my work against my mother's expectations?" she asked suddenly, the question lacing her voice with exasperation. "It's as if she has an echo that one T fade away." Leo nodded knowingly. "Because, in many ways, her voice resides within you. The challenge lies in transforming that echo into your own. What would happen if you stripped away her influence? What if I fail?" The words slipped out before she could catch them, a whisper of insecurity surfacing. "Failure is merely a step on the path," he replied. "If your art is perceived as chaotic, welcome that chaos. It's an opportunity for dialogue, for deeper connection. Not everyone will resonate, but the ones who do will find authenticity in your vulnerability. That's the essence of true art." As she contemplated Leo's words, the needle of conviction plunged deep into her thoughts. If she truly embraced her messy, chaotic self, it could pave a new path not only as an artist but also in her relationship with her mother. Instead of fearing her mother's scrutiny, she could wield it as a catalyst for strength. By the time she left Leo's studio, the weight of self-doubt had dissipated, and a sense of clarity filled the void. The upcoming exhibition wouldn't just be a display of her work, it would be a declaration of her identity. That night, Sarah sat before the canvas once more, this time with renewed purpose. With each brushstroke, she tapped into the raw emotions she had long suppressed: fear, joy, chaos, and clarity. It felt liberating. But as the days counted down to the exhibition, another thought lingered at the back of her mind. What if her mother's reaction would determine if she could truly step into her light? That question simmered, leaving an anxious undercurrent beneath her newfound resolve. The moment of exposure was approaching, and with it, the chance to break free or remain shackled. How would she navigate the delicate dynamics of their relationship once her truth was on display? Would this be the courageous arc she had envisioned, or a consequence of her mother's shadow? As the evening drew to a close, the faintest flicker of doubt returned. The journey ahead promised dramatic confrontation, the ultimate test of her individuality in the face of familial expectation. Would this exhibition mark her liberation or deepen her struggle? Her heart raced with anticipation and fear alike. Each passing day carried Sarah closer to the exhibition, yet the closer she drew, the louder the echo of her mother's voice resonated in her mind. What she had once perceived as inspiration now morphed into a shroud of anxiety. In moments of stillness, the vivid colors of her internal landscape darkened, tainted by doubts that coiled like ivy in her heart. Could she truly stand behind her art, knowing her mother's critical gaze would slice through it like a knife? Determined to confront this turmoil head-on, Sarah returned to Leo's studio, the air thick with expectation. Inside, vibrant canvases leaned against the walls like sentinels of her past decisions. Today, she needed to dive deeper, unearthing the layers beneath her swirling emotions instead of just weaving them onto the canvas. Leo, she began, her resolve trembling beneath her words. What if this exhibition isn't just about my art? What if it becomes a personal battleground? A confrontation with my mother? I can feel her judgment looming over the entire process. Leo straightened, his expression serious. Then make it that the battleground. Don't shy away from it. Use the exhibition as a moment of reckoning. Transform the fear into a narrative that reflects your journey not just as an artist, but as a woman asserting her identity. The idea settled within her, an unfamiliar blend of fear and excitement ignited. A battleground. She could expose her vulnerability without apology. Inspired, she spent days in his studio, letting Leo's mentorship guide her through the labyrinth of her frustrations, doubts, and ambitions. With each brushstroke, she distinguished her tumultuous emotions, allowing her anger to morph into vibrant reds, her fears into brooding blues, and her determination into unstoppable yellows. Her pieces evolved beyond mere expressions, they became manifestos of resilience, daring the spectators and her mother to embark on a journey through her chaos. Yet, just as things began to shift, unease slithered back in. The thought of her mother attending the exhibition gnawed at her. What if the moment unraveled her carefully crafted narrative? It would force her into an authenticity she had yet to fully accept. That idea clashed with her fear of disappointment, intensifying the internal rift. What if she finds fault in everything I've created? Sarah posed during one of her sessions with Leo. What if she dismisses my work completely? Then that's her choice, Leo countered firmly. Your work doesn't exist for her approval, it exists to voice your truth. Failures are just shadows, let them sit beside you, but don't let them take the lead. You're allowed to stand tall against those shadows. Determined to channel this new understanding, Sarah entered her studio the night before the exhibition, fueled by both anxiety and resolve. She had added one final piece of visual conversation with her mother, layering symbols that spoke of love, anger, fear, and hope. Each stroke on the canvas felt like an exorcism, cleansing her from the inside out. But even as she painted, a nagging question loomed: what if her mother dismissed her art as simply a cry for attention? What if this exhibition didn't serve as a turning point, but rather deepened the rift? That thought unleashed a torrent of memories, each a reminder of their fraught relationship, the critiques, the comparisons, the pressure to conform. As dawn approached, Sarah stepped back to admire her final creation. It reflected not just her journey, but an unflinching dialogue she was ready to engage in. This was who she was, no longer the shadow of her mother's expectations, but a vibrant force of her own. However, an unshakable uncertainty lingered just beneath the surface. The exhibition was imminent. How would she face her mother amidst the unveiling of her chaotic yet authentic self? The day had arrived, and as she prepared to step into that crowded space, she realized it was not just her work on display, but her very soul. Would it resonate, or would her mother's judgment weigh heavy? The fear of exposure electrified the air, leaving Sarah at the threshold of a confrontation that could redefine everything she believed about herself. What awaited her on the other side could either be a liberation long sought or an entanglement of further conflict. The moment of revelation was here, all she had to do was take that first step. As Sarah stood at the entrance to the bustling gallery, the air crackled with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Guests milled about, admiring her work as laughter and chatter swirled around her like a whirlpool threatening to pull her under. She was not merely an artist today, she was a battleground, an arena where her innermost conflicts would clash. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply, attempting to center herself. The vibrant colors of her pieces loomed large in her mind's eye, each canvas pulsing with the echoes of her journey. This moment marked both an unveiling and a reckoning, not only with the art but with herself. What if the piece labeled mother and child fell flat in her mother's critical gaze? This thought began to fester, reminding her of all the years spent chafing under expectations. "Sarah!" A familiar voice broke her reverie, pulling her back into the reality of the gallery. It was her mother, impeccably dressed, as always, the tightness of her smile betraying the tension in her eyes. "Mom," Sarah's voice barely escaped her lips, a fragile thread woven into the evening's excitement. There was a part of her that wanted to turn and flee, to hide away in a small corner of the studio where she felt safe crafting her expressions of pain and hope. But Leo's words loomed larger than ever. This was her battleground. "Your work is quite colorful," her mother commented, tilting her head as if scrutinizing the pieces as one might inspect an unfamiliar dish at a restaurant. "It reflects my journey," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Each color is a part of my story." The silent critique hung in the air, heavy and palpable, but Sarah pushed back against it. She focused on the warmth of the guests around her, the admiration of strangers igniting a flicker of confidence within. They moved from piece to piece, lost in her world, responding to the visceral honesty she had poured onto the canvases. As more visitors approached, lauding her talent, Sarah felt a swell of pride. Yet, her mother's piercing gaze remained, an unsettling reminder of past wounds. Unconsciously, Sarah hugged her arms around her waist, anchoring herself against the tide of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Focusing on an older couple admiring mother and child, she prepared to explain the inspiration. "This piece speaks to the complex relationship we nurture through love and responsibility. It's messy but beautiful," she articulated with surprising clarity. The couple nodded, developing puzzled but intrigued expressions. Sarah felt the warmth of validation wash over her, intoxicating and empowering. "Messiness is part of life," Leo had often said, "embrace it. Let it inform your art." And in that gallery, among the tapestry of voices and reactions, she found herself grappling with a growing resolve. This was who she was, mired in complexity and shadow yet bursting with color and light. The woman behind the canvas was learning to confront her past while stepping boldly into her future. But amid the applause and admiration, Sarah's mother interjected once more, her tone cutting through the euphoric haze. "I just wonder how these pieces will stand the test of time, dear. It's one thing to be bold, quite another to remain relevant." The words struck like a physical blow, challenging everything Sarah had built that night. A fresh wave of fear washed over her as she struggled to maintain her composure. Would her art be deemed a transient splash of color or a lasting testament to her journey? As she stared into her mother's eyes, she sensed a shift within herself. This wasn't merely an exhibition, it was a revolution. The very judgments intended to undermine her were now surging to become a call to arms. The question remained, could she redefine her worth in her mother's eyes without sacrificing her own artistic identity? Standing at that intersection of vulnerability and strength, she realized it was time to confront not just her past, but her future. The room vibrated with excitement, yet all she could feel was the impending confrontation with her mother, an unavoidable clash of ideologies all someone had to witness. Would she fortify her artistic spirit against her mother's influence, or was this the moment she would succumb to old fears? As guests continued to admire her art, Sarah stood resolute, preparing for the undeniable battle that lay ahead, ready to unveil how deeply flawed and beautifully resilient she truly was. The stakes had never been higher. How would she respond when her mother pressed the stiletto deep? The moment of truth was fast approaching. The ambient chatter began to dull, the noise transforming into a distant hum as Sarah summoned every ounce of her focus. In her mother's gaze, she read the expectations, the judgments that had followed her like a shadow for years. The very essence of her art was a rebellion against those confines, yet here was the embodiment of that confinement, scrutinizing everything she had worked to create. "Mom, I can't let your doubts define me anymore," Sarah said, voice quaking ever so slightly but full of purpose. The moment felt monumental, as if she were standing on the precipice of her own existence, daring to leap. Her mother's eyes widened ever so slightly, disbelief mingling with a hint of anger. "This isn't about me, Sarah. It's about the legacy of your work. You need to realize that not every artist stands the test of time. And maybe you need to realize that I am not you," Sarah shot back, the fire inside her igniting. The words spilled from her mouth before she fully grasped their weight. A moment of silence hung between them, a profound rift carved into their relationship, a chasm that Sarah had finally stepped into. The guests around them began to notice this exchange, shifting uneasily, unsure whether to intervene or retreat into their own conversations. Yet, it didn't matter. For the first time, Sarah felt the exhilarating rush of standing her ground. Each canvas around her served as a witness, absorbing the raw emotion flooding the gallery. "Do you think I'm looking for your approval?" Sarah questioned, a challenge laced in her tone. "This art represents the parts of my life you've never understood. It's the suffering, the joy, the intricacies of who I am. I've made peace with that. I create for me living in the light of my truth." The flush of vulnerability mingled with empowerment surged through her. This was more than a matter of simply creating art, it was about declaring her identity, about no longer being an echo of her mother's expectations but a symphony in her own right. Her mother opened her mouth as if to counter, then faltered. The tension shifted, transforming from a standoff into a battlefield of understanding. But that did not mean everything was resolved, it merely exposed a new layer of complexity. "I can't keep turning away from your disapproval, or else what am I really doing?" Sarah admitted, her heart racing. "But I'm tired of wrestling with the fear of your judgment. If that makes my work irrelevant in your eyes, then maybe it's time to embrace that too." In that moment, Sarah glimpsed a hidden strength, a fierce conviction blossoming within. She was no longer merely the artist fighting to be seen, she was a daughter wielding her own narrative against the tide of someone else's expectations. Guests shuffled, some whispering among themselves about the confrontation. A part of her wondered if the audience appreciated the palpable tension and artistic expression beyond the canvases. But another, deeper part cringed at the naked vulnerability exposed amidst judgment. "Is your identity so fragile that it shatters under scrutiny?" Her mother shot back, and this time, the challenge carried an edge of personal vendetta. "Art might be your medium, but will it withstand the storms it faces?" The question reverberated with a weight that pushed against Sarah's resolve. Was her evolution truly strong enough? Was she strong enough to maintain her artistic integrity before the fluctuating tides of external opinion? Sarah felt her legs shake slightly as uncertainty gnawed at her resolve, but she countered with newfound determination. "It's not the storms I fear, it's losing myself in the process of proving anything to you." The air crackled, laden with a mix of emotions: defiance, anger, fear, and resilience. This was the moment she had both anticipated and dreaded. As guests continued to gaze upon her canvases, Sarah recognized her moment was larger than the mere art displayed. It was a reclamation of self, a defiance against the stains of expectation that had long marked her life. The stakes felt impossibly steep. And as the gallery hummed with an electricity of confrontation, a sense of clarity washed over her. The time had come to face not just her mother, but the layers of fear wrapped tightly around her, layers she had always accepted without questioning. Sarah stood taller, a metaphorical shield raised against the storm gathering in her mother's eyes. The real question loomed in her mind: how deeply would she allow this confrontation to shift her perspective? The truth beckoned, waiting to be unveiled, and for the first time, she felt ready to embrace it. But would this mark the moment of transformation she so desperately sought, or would it unleash more chaos? As Sarah stood amidst the vibrant chaos of the gallery, every breath for her felt like a choice. She had spent years cradling her identity in a delicate balance between her art and her mother's judgment. Now, with her vulnerabilities laid bare, she faced her greatest confrontation, one that dared to redefine her relationships and her self-worth. With her mother's critical gaze locked onto her, Sarah felt the ancestral chains of expectation tugging at her heart. Art doesn't need to be static or perfect, Sarah declared, her voice steady despite the tremble of nerves. It thrives in authenticity. That's where I find my truth. The words echoed in the gallery, drawing the attention of onlookers who hovered between admiration and intrigue. Sarah understood that in this moment, she wasn't only asserting her artistry. She was dismantling the fortress of doubt that had confined her for so long. Each brushstroke on her canvas resonated deep with meaning, unraveling the expectations her mother had cast over her life. Her mother's expression morphed, revealing a flicker of awareness. But will it hold meaning for others? She asked, the question laden with perpetuated skepticism. It doesn't need to hold meaning for everyone, Sarah asserted, feeling an unexpected surge of confidence. It needs to hold meaning for me. I will not bend my purpose to fit your standards. I am reclaiming my narrative. Turning back to the crowd, Sarah realized their wide-eyed awe reflected her own journey. They were responding not just to her art, but to the honesty she wielded like a sword. She looked at her painting Mother and Child, a direct confrontation to her relationship with her mother, which contained both pain and love, represented through swirling colors entwined yet distinct. Every piece has a story, she said, her voice rising above the din. Like life, they are full of contradictions and complexities. They are not meant to be confined within rigid interpretations. This moment marked a definitive turning point as an invisible weight lifted from her shoulders. The fear that had consumed her was transformed into a profound clarity. She was reclaiming her individuality, no longer tethered to anyone's expectations. Facing her mother once more, Sarah continued, I have struggled for so long under the heaviness of your critique. Today, I choose to celebrate the art that is mine, embracing the messy, chaotic journey that has shaped me. My success is not dictated by your approval but by my ability to be true to myself. In an unexpected twist, the tension between them shifted, revealing a flicker of something akin to recognition in her mother's eyes. Maybe for the first time Sarah's words resonated beyond mere defiance. Perhaps they represented an invitation to acknowledge their intertwined paths, one colored by growth and the capacity for acceptance. Silence enveloped them, with the audience awaiting the next chapter of this dialogue. In that moment, Sarah felt the invisible strings binding their bond vibrate with a new purpose. Whatever the outcome, one truth illuminated brightly within her: she was an artist, steadfast in her identity. Suddenly, Sarah's gaze turned outward, absorbing the gallery's atmosphere. Laughter echoed alongside hushed whispers of approval. Guests marveled at her work, each interaction fortifying her resolve. She had ventured into battle, and in that confrontation with her mother, she had emerged empowered. As the evening wrapped up, Sarah found herself surrounded by patrons congratulating her on her exhibition, her heart swelling with pride. Real validation bloomed from within, feeding her creativity with nourishing light. Later, when the last guest had left, and the lights in the gallery dimmed to a soft glow, Sarah turned to her mother. Maybe we can rebuild, she suggested, her tone no longer filled with defiance, but rather an earnest hope. Art can reflect our complexities, our tensions, and perhaps it might guide us toward understanding. I don't need your approval, but I want you to be part of my journey. Her mother stood silent, the weight of past critiques heavy in the air. However, the exchange had shifted something fundamental between them. As they departed from the gallery, there lingered a sense of possibility, something Sarah had never believed could take root in their relationship. I see you, Sarah, her mother finally said, breaking the quietude as they walked side by side. And I'm beginning to understand. Those simple words marked a profound moment of connection. Sarah felt a blend of liberation and acceptance bloom within her, a powerful testament that she could embrace her individuality without the constraints of familial expectations. In the days that followed, Sarah had grown into a recognized artist, awarded not only for her talent but for her bravery in articulating her truths. The chaos that once plagued her transformed into an anthem of resilience. Her journey toward self-acceptance flourished, igniting a new spark within that would continue to propel her growth. Facing her vibrant canvases, she embraced the opportunities that lay ahead. She had not only achieved artistic success but had also fortified her identity, conquering the doubts that once haunted her. The vibrant colors on canvas now reflected the triumphant journey of a woman who had finally found her voice. And so, Sarah stepped into her future, one brushstroke at a time, ready to create, inspire, and cultivate a deeper understanding of herself and her art. Discover your own truth, for every moment holds the power to redefine your story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.